Yeah, it's good to be with you guys this morning. This is a topic that I'm really excited to talk about as we were preparing. Hopefully, it's a really interactive session today. We've got some great family business owners on the line. And I know in my group, there were three people who worked in family businesses. Ironically, I'm the subject matter expert today. I've not worked in a family business. So you guys have got more hands-on experience than me, but I'm going to share a screen with you guys. I've got just a little presentation. And just to tell you guys a little bit about how I came into this area, my MBA is in family business and entrepreneurship. And in my previous role, I worked for a tech company and I had a large sales territory, about 7 states, and I worked with a number of different small business owners who were channel partners with us, and just saw, these people are family business owners, and they're trying to navigate generational succession. They're all 65 plus and are trying to figure out how to get out of this business in a good way. And some of them had great plans in place. Some of them had terrible plans in place. And so seeing that inflection point and how critical it is to a business's success was really formative for me of thinking, how can we help improve outcomes for the family businesses that we're around? So that's a little bit of what we're going to talk about today. I think there's going to be some great dialogue, and so I'm looking forward to it. Like Lisa said earlier, please ask any questions in the chat. We're really interested in making this as relevant to you as we can. So, so that's me. That's my contact information. If you got any questions after this, would love to be able to help you. By day, I have an insurance agency downtown Jackson. Started in June of last year in the middle of a pandemic, and it's been a wild ride, but it's been a lot of fun. And so now I'm going to let our panelists introduce themselves. First, we've got Carolyn Vaughan and Roger Smith from Thompson Smith Insurance. You guys, Carolyn, why don't you introduce yourself, and then we'll hear a little bit from Roger. Carolyn, you are muted.
Unmute. Oh, sorry about that. Am I back? Can you hear me? All right. I'm Carolyn Vaughan, and I've born and raised here in Jackson, Tennessee. I joined Thompson Smith about 5.5 years ago, and enjoy my work here. I do commercial insurance as well as personal insurance.
Okay, and I'm Roger Smith. And can you hear me, Carolyn?
I can, sure.
Okay, good. Thompson Smith, we started Thompson Smith in 1998 as a merger between two predecessor companies, Associated Insurance Services and the Thompson Group. Formerly I worked grew up working in a family business, George A. Smith and Sons Funeral Directors here in Jackson. Carolyn worked there as well as a teenager and a young person. So we have experience working with a family business early on, and now we're working together again in a family business at Thompson and Smith.
Very good. Our next panelists are Regina and Jacob Richmond from Saucy Jake's Street Food. So y'all introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Regina.
And I'm Jacob.
And of course, we're Saucy Jake's. We've been in business for almost 5 years now, and it's been a ride. It really has. We work with our children on a daily basis. We also homeschool our children. And so it's been a good build to a family business.
It really has. We've learned a lot. And the good thing is we get along very well, all of us. So it's been great for us as a family that's in business together.
And we're planning the succession, as if they were talking about earlier. So we're getting ready to move to the next level. And that's what family business is about, I guess, right? Yeah. Just going to the next level.
Yeah, very good. Well, yeah, I'm excited about our panelists today because obviously they're in such different stages of family business. You can make the argument that George A. Smith and Sons is a really mature family business that's been around for 90 years now. And so Roger and Carolyn bring experience from that. And then Saucy Jake's, y'all have been in business, what, 3 or 4 years?
We're going into our 5th year.
Going into the 5th year. Okay.
Yeah, we're going to take all of it. We won't let anybody It's almost 5.
My apologies. You guys deserve every year that you've got under your belt. So, well, very good. Well, to get started, I've got some just some facts about family business, and just to kind of frame the conversation as to why this is such a critical area of business management to be familiar with. And the first reason for that is 60% of U.S. businesses are family owned. Just hearing that for the first time was jarring to me. I had no idea that they were that prevalent, made up that significant an amount of the jobs and the businesses that are in this country. They're responsible for 78% of new job creation. And that's huge. You know, I mean, as we think about employment trends within the last couple of months, I guess since March, we've seen a significant amount of loss of jobs. And so where are we going to look for new job creation? Well, we're going to look to family businesses as a huge driver of job creation. And then, so those are both good things about family business. There's a bunch of them. They create a lot of jobs, and that's great. One thing that is a challenge for family businesses is only 30% of family firms survive from the first generation to the second generation. To put that another way, family businesses have a 70% failure rate from generation 1 to generation 2. Only 12% of family businesses make it from generation 1 all the way to generation 3. So again, that's 88% of family businesses do not make it to generation 3. And there's some best practices that we'll get into later today. And these folks have got some good experience with that, that can increase the success rate of passing off your family firm from Gen 1 to Gen 2, from Gen 2 to Gen 3. So let's talk first about some strengths that family businesses have. They're uniquely positioned to do these things well. Growth. This might not be one that you'd think of because often the firms that you think of that have great growth are venture capital startups from Silicon Valley, the Facebooks, the Amazons, the Googles of the world. But across all metrics in long-term growth, this is worldwide, not just in the US, family businesses outperform other types of businesses in terms of their long-term growth. So, you know, you're not sacrificing profit to be in a family business to have the culture and values that are important to you. And there's a lot of reasons. And actually that article that Lisa sent out shares some of the really good reasons that family businesses do so well for the long term. Culture is another real strength. 80% of businesses shared that they feel they have a clear sense of purpose and agreed values. And that has a really positive impact on the workplace. Feeling like the people who work with you on a day-to-day basis, you guys have the same goals, the same values, the same kind of moral compass that's guiding the company. You know, and they also feel like they hold themselves, family business owners do, to a higher standard and are really concerned about ethical issues. Long-term planning. Family businesses are not concerned about this quarter's goals. They are concerned about creating generational wealth for the future. And so they are able to get outside of the stockholders' demands for returns on this quarter and are able to invest in the long term. So that's some of the strengths that research tells us are in a family business. I want to hear from our panelists specifically what some of the strengths are that are within your business experience.
For us, we focus a lot on our culture. I guess it's because it's our foundation, and a lot of the culture that we've instilled in our children goes hand in hand with our family and the dynamics of where we are as a whole. And so the culture for us was the most important thing. I mean, because you can be taught the growth and, you know, you can adjust the long-term planning here and there, but our culture is exactly what we stand for and how we interact with each other. And so we've been teaching our children just how to be a unit and not be as selfish and not go into the family business with your own plans. We're hoping that they eventually could, you know, step out and do some things on their own investments. And we just want our culture to be family and being in business for family and not just being a family business. And so that's basically where we started with them. It's always about the culture. That's our foundation.
Yeah, that's great. And then let's hear from the Thompson and Smith folks as well.
Well, I think that the bond that a family, can have can spill over and benefit a business. Carolyn and I are in the minority here. There are more non-family team members at Thompson and Smith than family members, but there's that family bond that is sort of undergirds everything else. Although we have a work relationship and then a family relationship, I think that family bond is still there to where you're committed, or in most cases, family members are committed to help support the success of the business.
I agree. I think we have shared values, we have shared goals, and I think that being in a family and working with family, I think you can bring that to the table, that you value what we do every day. We have a great work environment here. It's not, like Roger said, it's not all family, but we have a great work family here, as well as working with family. So I think just bringing those goals and values to the team really adds something to our relationship.
Yeah, and I know it can be kind of a weird thing to talk about the growth of your business. I just want to point out for those who are on the call that Saucy Jakes has made the transition from a food truck to brick and mortar, and of course you guys are looking to expand further. So it's great to see that you guys are doing so well. And then obviously Thompson and Smith is one of those businesses that is a fixture when you're thinking of insurance solutions that people think of you guys, especially as a local face for that. So obviously you guys are both doing very well on the growth side of things too. Anything else that you guys want to add before we move on? Any questions from those on the call? Super. Well, we'll move ahead. So let's talk about weaknesses. And this is probably my favorite thing to think about because obviously the folks that we've got with us today have got such good experience with dealing with the challenges that come along as you're working with a family business. Anytime I can learn from somebody else's experience, that's the sort of thing that I'd like to do. That's a lot cheaper than learning from my own mistakes. And so the two main weaknesses that we're going to talk about today, and I think these are the biggest issues facing family business. Number one is generational succession. Like we mentioned earlier, a very small percentage of businesses make it all the way to generation 3. Still a really small part of the pie makes it even to generation 2. And so that's a real weakness. It's a real challenge for family businesses that is unique to them. And so that's one we want to talk about, but then also employee dynamics. And even in my breakout group, we talked about this a little bit, that there's the workplace relationship is different from the family relationship. The relationships between family employees and non-family employees can be challenging. One of the reasons for that is, let's imagine I'm a non-family member working in a family business. Well, my growth potential in the company may be smaller just because of the fact that I am not a family member. And so issues of nepotism and favoritism can really cause some cultural problems within a family business. And then also the blurred lines between, here's our relationship at home. Does that bleed over into our relationship at work? Are there lower expectations just because you're a family member and we love you? Or are you held to a higher standard? That kind of thing. And so those are some of the things that we know that cause problems for a lot of family businesses. And I know when we were talking last week, each of you guys have had to deal with that in your own business.
Yeah, and I think that's probably one of the more important things we'll talk about today is structure within a family business. Because like here at Thompson and Smith, I mean, as I say, there are only Well, early on in Thompson Smith, my partner, Chuck Thompson, worked with my then partner, the late Jim Thompson. So we had that family dynamic. Chuck had a sister who worked here formerly. I have a sister who works here now. I think what you have to really, one important thing to think about is structure within the business. And if a family business is needing to hire talent, and that talent's going to come from a non-family source, then that business better have a good business structure and staffing structure, or the non-talent, the non-family prospective employee or team member, they're not going to stay around very long if you don't have the right structure that's going to reward them, even though they're not a family member. So I think it's important to make sure that the family business is structured so that it supports non-family members, and you're able to get the talent that you need outside of the family.
Yeah, I think, Roger, I think that's a really great point of insight. And that's one area that family businesses are often light on. We talk about the values and the vision. Sometimes the values carry over and take the place of formal structure. So you definitely need both. You need good HR practices and employee guidelines so that people who aren't in the family know that they're still going to be treated fairly and have good opportunities for growth.
Well, even being a family member, I still think that, I know I've probably got pretty good job security. I hope I do, but I have to come in every day, just like a non-family member does, and put in my time. Don't take advantage of personal days or extra vacation. Just because I'm family doesn't mean I have extra perks or benefits, but I'm an employee here too. So I do feel like I have to show up on time and be here to be committed, just even though I am family. I think that that's important to know too, that not going to take advantage of a situation. I come in here every day. I enjoy working with Roger. He's been a great mentor. We've even been on a couple of client calls together and been able to tag team. Maybe I've got a better relationship than he does with the client, and vice versa. So it's very rewarding being able to work here with my brother. And I told this the other day that when I first started working here, I had to remember not to tell him I loved him every day I left the office. It's just one of those things we do. We're a very close-knit family. We do share a lot of love in our family. So it is something you have to be conscious of other people here that aren't family members, and be respectful about.
Yeah, see, the good thing is for us that it's our kids and us together, husband and wife that works there. So we do have clear defined roles. Everybody know what they're supposed to do every day on a day-to-day basis. It helps a lot. We do have structures in place for when the time comes to hire non-family members, to make sure that they know the dynamics of what we do every day on a day-to-day basis too. And they're gonna know their rules, and their role, and the way that we have it structured, so they know that, okay, within a year, maybe I'll be promoted to this, that, and the other. So we do have that in place. It's also good having our kids there, because we can be totally honest. You don't have to worry about hurting nobody's feelings when it comes to if they did a good job or they did something wrong.
Well, but we're learning also that we have to see them as employees and assets of the company. And so we don't want our living room conversation to flow over into the business and be so blunt, because we don't want to destroy the relationship of the family business. And we want them to understand that we're not just always drilling and training, but we respect the roles and the positions that they hold. And so being in a family business, you have to know that the employee dynamic must shift. And so being a parent works sometimes, but you also have to know to be the lead and to use certain lingo and conversations in order to develop that person.
That's great. We'll kind of keep touching on some of these issues, because we're going to move into best practices for what to do about succession planning, what to do about the employee dynamics. And so real briefly, best practices, the biggest thing, if there's somebody on the call who's in a family business who is working with family businesses, number one is have a plan. Fewer than half of family businesses have a clear succession plan in place. Even having a bad plan is better than having no plan. And so that's number one. If you don't take anything else from this call, know that this is a critical speed bump for many family businesses, and that you can mitigate this risk by having a plan. And a lot of times that's working with an expert. And depending on the scale of the family business, I know there are some family businesses in town that have been around for a long time, have got significant assets both within and without the business. Sometimes that means you've got to have one plan for the family and estate planning and whatnot, but then you've got to have another plan for the business and how control of that business is going to move from one generation to the next. So finding experts who are able to help you with that is really helpful. And then committing to a timeline. So many times the first generation's CEO leaves because of a medical event, or they just get sick and tired one day and decide to move to Florida. If you commit to a timeline, you get to choose your last day rather than having your last day chosen for you. As you guys think about succession planning, Regina, I know we talked about that this is something that's really important to you guys, even though y'all are young and your kids are young. And then obviously Roger and Carolyn, you guys were were within George A. Smith and Sons. I wonder what insight you guys can provide about how that process of generational succession took place.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Regina.
Well, I was going to just say that our succession plan started with making sure that they wanted to go to the next level and that this is something that they wanted to do. A lot of times in family business, you are somewhat thrown into it or forced just to accept the dynamics of it and just to accept the fact that you have a family business. But our succession plan started with the conversation with our children. We just wanted to know, do you enjoy this? Is it something you want to do? And if it is, we can put that plan into motion. And so our succession plan started with that conversation. Our children are fond of it. And we're actually in the process of opening the second location, and we're going to allow the children, the older two, to take over and to branch out with that.
Yeah, it was important to make sure that they didn't look at it as a chore every day. This is mom and dad wanted to do this, but for them to come and really buy into what we have in the brand of Saucy Jakes is amazing, because that's what they really want to do, and not just to please us, but we see it that this is what they love to do also. So they buy into our vision, our goal, and that helps a lot when it comes to succession.
And it also, you may need to reassess it or revisit the succession plan even as you go years into the business, because someone may have a change of heart and it may not work, and you just need to know what's next for the business in order for it to survive and be successful.
Yeah, I think that's great. One thing that really was surprising to me as we were talking last week was the degree of transparency that y'all have with your kids. I mean, they're looking at financial statements. They're doing the orders for produce and other ingredients that you guys have in the restaurant. I mean, what was the thought process of that degree of transparency? Because I think that that's unique.
Well, it helps a lot as far as trust. And so we trust them wholeheartedly. And with that gives them a sense of ownership also, because we trust them so much and they know that they can trust us, and we're not here to hurt them at all. So they're learning and process when it comes down to it.
And it gives them a sense of, like he said, ownership and control. And not only that, it allows them to know that you're not just here to fill a space. We want them to understand skill set, and we want to polish their qualifications, because if you're going to be a part of the business, you should know it inside and out. And so our goal was to let them see the ups and the downs. If you're going to say yes to this thing, you should know that some quarters will be a little iffy, and sometimes you'll have to give more than you have in the beginning. But we wanted them to know the transparency of it was that it's yours. It's important for you to be there, and just take it and run with it.
Yeah, that's great. Roger, Carolyn, what are your experiences with this kind of succession planning process?
Well, I had the benefit of seeing it at George A. Smith and Sons, which my grandfather, George Smith, founded in 1930. I got the benefit of seeing that evolve, in my early years, and then to see once they knew what the roadmap was, and that was that my father and one of his brothers would take the business forward. I was able to see my grandparents, along with their legal advisor and tax advisor, put together a plan with my father and his brother to move the business to the next generation. So I saw that process in action, and then of course it was structured to reward my grandparents for their hard work, and then to pass the torch along to my father and his brother. And then it took care of my grandparents throughout. My grandmother lived to be 104 years old, and so she was well taken care of through her lifetime, and yet through careful planning, was able to pass the torch on to my father and his brother, until the business later became a part of a international company, actually. So yeah, I was blessed to see them with thoughtful planning and advisors make all of that work.
What would you say the timeline was from beginning of the formal planning process to execution of really handing over the control of that business?
Well, I remember that starting in the 1970s, actually, the conversation, and I think around 1980 or 81, they formalized that contractually. So it was probably a long time in conversation, but maybe 3 or 4 years in the actual meeting with advisors and getting things set up. And by that time, the business was a fairly large business, so it took some time to get it together. But and probably a lot of that was not because it really took that long. It's just it's probably a stop process where you get something done and then wait for the next meeting to make it happen. But it was probably 2 to 3 years in process of formal talks and getting the advice of professionals and then putting it together.
Yeah, that's great, and that timeline is about what people recommend. It's not too long, but it's certainly not so short that somebody gets the rug pulled out from under them. Anybody have anything to add here before we move on to employment practices? Hang on. Millennials are supposed to be good at technology, so very sorry for all of this. All right, I figured it out. Fantastic. All right. Best practices for employment qualifications. There's a great question in the chat that we will get to about what do you do once you've got a bad egg, and specifically a family member who's a bad egg. The first thing that I'll say about that is it's better to not get to that point. And these are some strategies that can help you make sure that the family members who get on board have earned their place in the organization and are going to continue that route. But obviously there's always plenty of opportunities for somebody to take advantage of a system that's a little lenient. So the first strategy is outside employment. This would be, the expectation is you're going to go and build a skill set that works for our business, but you're going to go build that at another organization so that when you come in, one, you've proven yourself in a totally unbiased atmosphere. But number two, you're going to bring in some of the things that they do well and bring in some fresh ideas to this organization. So that's one strategy that works well. Another strategy that works well is to work from within. A couple of people in my breakout room talked about their family-owned convenience stores. And I think Matt Marshall's on the call, and he remembers using the price gun to put prices on items in the convenience store as young as 6 or 7, making change at 8 or so. And so that kind of working at really bottom end of the organizational chart early on and working your way up just like anybody else would have to is really valuable. And then the third strategy is professional development. This would be formal education or certifications that provide you with some of the knowledge and skills that are essential for working in something that's kind of technical in nature. So those are some employment practices. What have y'all experienced in terms of making sure that your employees, whether family or non-family, are giving you their best and are contributing positively to the culture that's really important for y'all's businesses?
For us, we're actually in strategy 2 and 3. Strategy number 1 for us, outside employment, hasn't been a focus because we're still setting the foundation of what we want our business to be and our children to take over, and to hopefully they branch off into more of that where they begin to bring in outside employment. For the work within, we started our kids, I was smiling because we started them as, at the level 1 where you just have to learn the basics of the business. And so our son has grown so much because he started just dropping fries and he figured it out. Like, once you do that, you go to the next level. So there is a stair-step ladder, even in family businesses, when you bring people in and you teach them from the beginning. Our daughter, she started just answering the phones, and her communication skills have grown tremendously because she just said, hi, thank you for calling Saucy Jakes. And now she talks on the level of just being able to communicate very well with people and understand them. And our hope for that is to take her to the next level in communication. And that's why strategy 3 for us is where we are now. We're actually putting them in classes and letting them join in on different meetings to see the next step of developing where you are. I tell them all the time that everybody has the potential to shine, but some people just need to be polished. And that's what that professional development is for them. We're polishing them and bringing out what's already in them. And when they know it's there, it's not as hard to get them to, buy into that concept.
Well, it sounds like Regina and Jacob are doing a great job parenting and modeling work ethic, and I'm sure their kids will be successful. I think that there is a lot to be said. Not every family, and not every child develops that way. So there's something to be said for working outside of the family. It's sort of real world. It gives people a feel for what most people go through working for someone else and what the real world is like. So hopefully if they do come back into the family business, they can, bring value to that business in a committed way. I think someone mentioned, was asking about a bad apple and what to do about it in a family business. I think one of the first things you have to establish is, can we be family and be in business together? And then understanding that there are bumps in the roads and there might have to be hard decisions made because, for the sake of the entity and for the sake of other family members and non-family members, sometimes difficult decisions have to be made if someone's not being responsible in their role or not. So that's where it's difficult sometimes, and that's where you have to have an agreement on the front end that, hey, whatever happens, we'll still be family.
Yeah, I think that's really great. And just to reiterate the question and hear some more thoughts. The question was about the dynamic between non-family members who are producing well and then family members who are not producing well. That dynamic can create some real issues. And so, what experience do y'all have with that? How'd you handle it? Or what might you recommend? Go ahead.
I was just going to say, as far as I'm concerned, we've never really had that issue deal with as far as a family member not pulling their weight. I think it's important when you give responsibility to a family member, you also give them authority, and then hopefully they'll, can be successful. And I've seen that happen in my career, usually successfully. I've never really had to have the be in an unfortunate position to deal with a family member not contributing or not pulling their weight. So I can't really speak to that.
Yeah, and I think to point out at what stage in a family business's life cycle this might happen, I think most of the issues of family members filling roles that they're either not qualified for or are not producing well in is going to happen in a second or third generation family business, where the expectation has become you work at the family business. And often, if you get a business to that stage where it's in the second generation or the third generation, there are some additional structures that help to create boundaries between the family and between the business. And so there's going to be a board that helps the family business. There's also going to be a small group of family members that serve as a family council. And those are the entities that are going to have the conversation about the individual who's being a problem. But that's a great question. Thank you, Teresa, for asking that. All right, that is the end of our formal presentation. Any questions from those on the call? Any kind of final thoughts to wrap us up today from the folks on our panel? Very good. Guys, thank you so much for making the time today. Hopefully this was valuable for you. I think you guys had ample opportunity to get my contact information. I'm not hard to find. None of these people are hard to find. And so, Lisa, thanks for handing over the reins today, and I'll gracefully pass them back to you.
Thank you, David.
All right, he passed it back to me, and all I'm going to say is thanks for joining us, guys. I did put in the chat, I'm really excited about a second location, Jacob and Regina. Those Philly cheesesteak egg rolls, they're so good. So anyway, thank you all for joining us. I hope this was helpful and beneficial for you. We'll have future Spark events, so definitely watch the Chamber and the Code to learn about those, and hope that you guys have a great rest of your day and a good start to your week.
Thank you.